Point number two is.
Point number two is. Gosto de pegar aqui application price.
What's up, citizens of the MBA Wire? Welcome back to another episode of Insights here. Today I have this special guest. It's Paulo César Moraes from Philadelphia Consulting, which by coincidence is the same place I work at.
Yes. We have been working together for
5
decades, right?
Yeah, 50 years. It seems like decades, but it seems like...
It does.
Yeah,
right.
but it goes by so fast.
Really?
Yeah. Anyway, we're here today because we want to talk to you guys about the application process for 2018-2019. I mean, this next year is going to be crazy because every year we've been getting more and more demand. I mean, it's just increasing.
The Brazilian pool is growing amazingly. You want to be ahead of the competition by starting as early as possible.
Yeah.
You know, do not underestimate the process. Most students, when they hit March, too late, right?
Way
too late. Yeah, way too late. I mean, I'm going to start studying for GMAT in March, April. Too late, you're behind. So students are studying for the GMAT right now. They're getting their scores in January, February. You want to begin as early as possible. Do not underestimate the process, because if you start early as possible, you can maximize your chances. Mm-hmm. You get a higher score. You can write better essays. You can really expand your networking into the schools. You know, you're going to be much ahead of the competition in terms of profile, in terms of the application. Begin as early as possible.
Yeah, it's been getting competitive.
And also, first round has become the round for Brazilians. You know, more Brazilians than ever are going into first round. So, you know, schools are filling their spots with Brazilians from the first round. Of course, you can apply second round and still have good results, but, you know, first round is it. You know, the schools are, you know, selecting the first Brazilians. They're distributing a lot of scholarships. First round is where you need to get ready for.
I'm wondering something, though. I think a lot of our viewers might want to know. What are some things they need to consider before even thinking about applying? Or what should they do? I mean, what should they have already set in mind?
Well, you know, first of all, do not underestimate the admission tests. You know, most people think studying for TOEFL and GMAT are very easy.
The GMAT is easy.
The GMAT
is easy. Yeah, the TOEFL's tough.
The TOEFL's tough. Well, you want to get ready as early as possible. For some students, studying for the test is not a big deal. No, they can easily get scores. But for most Brazilians, it is a long process, and you want to be sure that you engage as early as possible to maximize your score. So what we highly recommend is that you get a diagnostic test. You know, be tested on TOEFL and GMAT, and let somebody tell you your status, you know, where you're at this point, and what you should do to develop well into those tests and get a competitive score.
If you have a starting point, if you know where you are and you know where you need to get to, I think it makes it easier to build a strategy and to provide students with the education that they need to really do well on the GMAT and the TOEFL. So,
absolutely. You know, some students have a very good level of English, so they can begin with the GMAT and then go to TOEFL. Mm-hmm. But if you don't, then maybe it's better for you to begin with the TOEFL, build up some understanding, and then go to GMAT. One way or the other, you want to be sure that somebody tells you what to do. You don't want to be buying books, official guide and all that, and start studying like crazy. You know, I think I know what to do, and then next thing you know, you spend 3-4 months, and then you're in the same place, and you know, whereas a coach would help you gain a lot of time and focus, and of course increase your score. So you want to be really strategic about choosing your coach and helping. Most Brazilians need a coach to maximize the score. Some students are able to study by themselves amazingly. Some good scores, but you know, maybe getting somebody on your side will be a huge value added there for you to have a good score. You want to really hit the high 700s at this point in Brazil. You know, for a top 10 school, you want to be on the 730, 740 mark to be able to be on a good standing. You know, be on a top score for your application. Yeah,
I can recall. I mean, there are like maybe a handful of students who can really do it on their own, but the majority of our students, or my students at least, you know, they'll come at me and they'll say, you know, like, hey, I bought 4 TOEFL guides, and which one do I use? And I'm just like, you can use all of them, but you don't really need to use all of them. I mean, you have so many different options today, online options as well. So, I mean, I guess that's what coaches are for. I mean, we're here because of our experience, of what we know is tried and true, but also we're up to speed with all the new trends happening,
books,
and books and happening through the admissions process. So, I mean, rely on that. But what are some of the criteria that you think that students should think about when they're choosing their coach?
Well, you want to do your homework. You want to get references. People talk about, how satisfied they are with their coach. For GMAT, you want to be sure that you plug in with a person that knows the content of the test very well. But more than that will be able to lead you into growing to the studies and hitting the mock tests as early as possible to be able to train and practice and really get feedback on your performance so you know the gaps, then you can grow and grow. And then and a person that would tell you, this is the time for you to take your first test. Most Brazilians, would take a couple of tests. It's really okay to take a second test. You have several options now to cancel your score if you're not happy with your score. But you want somebody to guide you through the process. This is vital. It's going to save a lot of time, a lot of energy, and more than that, you're going to maximize your score at the end, which is what you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we focus a little bit more on the GMAT, especially in Brazil, mainly because with MBA Wire, for those of you who have listened to all the episodes, you'll notice that 70-80% of people that I interview always talk about the GMAT.
Do not underestimate the admission tests, okay? Get ready as soon as possible.
Yeah, the sooner the better.
The sooner the better.
We're recording this right now. We're near the end of November, and we've already have how many students wanting to apply for first round next year? It's just...
Well, it's amazing. Every year we have more and more students coming to us in October, November, December. We have probably 30% of the pool already in, planning to studying already, getting the GMAT in January or February. We can get the test up to April, May would be great, but the sooner the better. The
sooner the better. I mean, how many students that I know at least who have, who get near the first round deadlines and they still haven't gotten their scores.
Right.
It's crazy. It gets crazy.
And then you don't maximize your process,
Exactly.
Often I have students that come to me and they, I have 670 on GMAT, 680.
No.
Oh, why did you study? Yeah, I studied by myself. Oh, all right. Maybe you could have gotten somebody to help you and it would go over 700. That will make a huge difference in terms of schools you accessing and all that. So,
780 is even better.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we're looking for the 800 score Brazilian there. Soon, maybe we're going to have an 800 this year.
Yeah. Yes. No, well, last year we had a 780,
780, yeah. We had 780 last year. 790 in the past, yeah.
Yeah, see? Results.
Yeah.
That's point number one then. Point number two is
the application process.
Yeah. Finding your consultant.
Right. Finding your consulting services as early as possible is very important.
No, it is important though.
What do you want to do? You want somebody that can evaluate your profile as early as possible because there are a few things you can change. You can add value.
I mean, if there's something lacking in your profile that would really enhance your chances to have an attractive application for admissions, that could be something we could identify earlier on in the process so that we can fill that gap. I mean, whether it's like international experience, right?
Yeah. You have like 7 or 8 months into the deadlines, first round deadlines, and maybe you lack international experience, and then maybe you can talk to your employer and you can work in Africa for a couple of months, or maybe you can get off work for a month and then do something meaningful abroad. Get engaged with a community service.
Yeah.
Right. You can engage with somebody. So maybe international experience is still available. You can still do something regarding that.
You still have time. You still have time to make changes to your profile.
And maybe you have, maybe you don't have a lot of community involvement in your background, and maybe you've done something long ago. You have 6 months to help meaningfully an organization to increase their results. Mm-hmm. And engaging in January will still give you, what to say in terms of how you're helping others. So, you want to be sure that you evaluate what is in your background that can change. And then you want to plan the visits to the schools. School visit is something that a lot of students are doing right now. It's a great way to connect with the schools and understand their culture. But you want to plan. Schools closing and for holidays, and they have different schedules and all that. So you want to plan and you want to go as early as possible. Most schools are available from January to like April. May, the month of May, a lot of schools go into finals, so you hit the schools and there's nothing to see. So, but planning your visit is important. Most Brazilians are visiting schools right now. I mean, currently.
Yeah, I mean, visiting the school is extremely important for you to also get a sense of, your living environment for 2 years, your possible living environment for 2 years. You also get to interact with students. So many people who go on campus can immediately sense if that's the right school for them or not. Right. That's kind of crazy, just by stepping on campus. Yeah.
That's my school.
I know, this is like, I love it. Yeah, and then, after you've spoken with students, networked, right? Once you've spoken with current students and alumni, which is extremely important to understand not only the fit for the school, but also some specifics of why you want to go there. That's just crucial for your entire application. I mean,
right. Networking is important throughout your life, right?
Yeah, throughout.
Even more during the application process. Networking is vital. I mean, tell me about networking.
Oh yeah. I mean, so many students who there are people who don't end up talking to alumni, show up at the interview process, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but they show up during the interview and then they're talking about how they're very eager to engage with the community.
Right.
They're amazed by the
culture, right? The culture, right? So
and then when they're asked, so how many students have you spoken with? And then they're just like, no, I haven't had the chance to speak to one.
Working too much.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, all right, admissions officers and just even interviewers are trained and they can smell BS from a mile away. So if it is, I mean, if you don't have an network, I mean, if you're interested in a school, you're gonna do everything you can to get to know about that school, get to know about the students, because you don't want to make the mistake of showing up at the interview and saying something like, I didn't have the time.
Right.
I mean, you had 8 months. I mean, if you started now, you had more than a year.
Right. Right. And school alums from all top schools, they're eager to talk to you. If you plan ahead, you can take them to lunch. You can talk to them about the school. You can draw a series of questions that will help you understand the culture and the application process and the admissions process. And by the time you finish talking to several alums, you're probably going to have a great feeling about your fit. Which schools I really belong to.
Mm-hmm.
I love alums from that school. I didn't really get along with the alums from that other school. Mm-hmm. So it gives you a lot of resources to develop a great narrative in terms of why you want to go to that school.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I would do, like just a quick takeaway, apart from some of the tips that I provide in the online interview course that I offer, some of the quick tips is this. One other actionable advice that I would provide is this. Once you've gotten to speaking with 5 to 10 alumni or current students to kind of get the general ideas out of the way, I would continue connecting with those 10 alumni, even with some admissions officers, connect with them on social media, and just kind of like one of their posts once in a while, send them a cool comment if you see a nice, post. If you see them on the info, if you meet them again on the info session, bring a little gift, be like, hey, listen, just wanted you to know that you guys are doing a great job. I loved this info session. Thank you so much. Be in their minds the entire time. This is kind of a way, it's something I learned back in high school through the book. It's called The Art of Schmoozing. It's a very old book, but it's kind of cool where if you really want to make an impact and be remembered for something, it's not one specific moment. It's a broken down series of little things that you can do throughout.
Collection, right?
Yeah,
collection of moments, yeah. You don't want to be talking to students in June or July. You want to be starting that in January, February, when students are available. And they can talk to you and you have more time. You can plan to have a lunch with an alum every week. If you have that goal, by the end of the semester, you're going to have covered a lot of ground in terms of precious information for your process.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I just very quickly. I had a student. She, apart from her work and her community work and her international experience, she was also she had an arts and crafts hobby where she would actually design and create little moleskin notebooks, but in her own style, in her own flair. And what she would do was she would take those to like info sessions. She would take she took those to info sessions whenever she met with them. Can I just give you this gift, or would you like to have one, just as a, and it was kind of cool because she did get accepted into 4 out of 5 of the schools she applied to. So
wow.
I won't say her name, so but anyway, moving on.
Matt has an incredible interview program that students engage before going to the interview, but yes, it's
so when students watch it, no, I was kidding.
No,
it's
but
good.
It's so enlightening, and it's so much fun to go through the program. And students do that as early as January or February to learn some of the things, And if you feel that your English is a little rusty, you may want to begin taking conversation classes as early as possible to really have the nice flow talking. So when you hit the interview, you're right there, conveying all the information as fluently as possible. But Matt can help you incredibly with his program and, of course, with his coaching for the interview.
One of the most incredible feedback, the most common feedback that I've heard about the interview course that I have online is, I wish I had watched this earlier.
Yeah, I've heard that so many times.
During the application process.
It gives me so many good ideas, and I learned so much about going to the site right here. Look at this link right here and check this out.
Yeah, the link. I'll include the link here in the body and on the screen. But it's like, if you think about the process, you have the diagnostic test, the TOEFL, the GMAT, the essays, the coaching, and the essays,
right.
And then you go to the interview process. And so most students, a few years ago, would purchase the online interview course at the end, but then they would regret not having bought it in the beginning, because that would have helped them really identify what questions to ask alumni when they're connecting with them, what to look for in each school, what kind of specific things that you should be picking out for each school to help you set up not only your essays but also your interview questions and answers.
Along with connecting with the alums, you want to be studying the programs. We want to give you a lot of resources that you can actually access, free resources for you to study the programs of the schools. So you want to start with the rankings. Of course, you want to check the rankings, but rankings are not really ideal. You have so many rankings that invalidates the ranking issue, right?
No. Rankings are important for many.
Reference,
majority. I stated in my course, I dislike rankings mainly, but and I explained that in the course. I won't explain that, but that's why I make this face.
Right.
Yeah, but rankings are important. Nonetheless, that's one of the first things that people see when they're choosing their school.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, but there's an underlying ranking that everybody knows. Those are the best schools, the 7 best schools. They have prevailed for over 25 years. So beyond the rankings, top 3 schools are
Harvard, Stanford, MIT.
MIT, right? They rule. They are amazing programs. They will transform you beyond your imagination.
Actually, they are fantastic schools, but I think they're playing a lot more on brand name now. This is just my take. Everybody has different opinions, but I think, like, if you're looking at top 15 schools, just the transformation that everyone lives through is amazing. The thing about the top 3 is that those are the 3 hardest schools to get into.
For sure.
That's the one.
But they are the schools that will give you the most in terms of branding and outreach, right? And then you have the top 5 schools. And then you have Kellogg, Chicago, Wharton, and Columbia.
Yeah.
Top 5 schools are, a Brazilian's favorite
schools to apply to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brazilians want to be sure they're at least on the top 5.
Yeah. Right? Or even top 10. You have other schools like INSEAD.
Oh, of course.
London
and then
Business School.
We have top 10, and it's going to INSEAD, London, Michigan, Duke, Tuck, of course.
Tuck,
it's an amazing program.
Tuck.
Berkeley. Love Berkeley.
You said Duke, Fuqua?
Duke,
it's one of my favorites. But I really like the European schools.
Yeah.
There's been a bigger push, I think, for European schools.
Huge international community right there.
Huge. The international diversity you get at the European schools is just crazy.
INSEAD is amazing. More and more Brazilians are applying to INSEAD more than ever.
INSEAD has been top program for like 2 years now, right? Top 1 year program.
Yeah, they've been in the top of the rankings. Incredible return.
Yeah. So I mean, rankings are important. I mean, that's going to take you a substantial amount of time to just start researching on what schools, which rankings are important for you.
Right, and then you want to read about the programs before you go and talk to an alum. So, here in the resources we are providing you, you can study program, you can have an overview, and then draw a few interesting questions, and then hit the networking, and then really have relevant questions to ask, and really make more sense out of the feedback you're getting from the alum. Mm-hmm. Be sure that you do your homework well.
Yeah.
That will count.
Yeah. I mean, reaching out to alumni is extremely important. I don't know how many times students have told me after they've done the exercise that I tell them, which is reach out to at least 15, 20 alumni, talk to each one for about 20, 30 minutes if possible. On LinkedIn, you just search them, alumni of this program, MBA program, X school, right?
Right.
And after you've spoken with about 5 or 6 people, you realize if that school has your fit or not, because we are the sum of the 5 people we hang out with the most, right? And if you don't click with those 5-6 people from each school, then you have to take a step back and think about that.
Yeah, you can call us on LinkedIn, and you can plug in with our network. We'll be glad to help you with that.
No, I'm gonna charge.
You're gonna charge. No. Do you have LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn.
You do, right?
I have LinkedIn. Yeah. You have to. Yeah, we're connected.
Yeah, we're connected. I hope so, right?
Yeah. So basically, it's already, for those of you thinking about applying for an MBA, it's not time anymore to think about it. It's time to start putting the work and researching and actually taking action. That's the time now. I mean, we're about a month away from Christmas and New Year's, and it's all the festivities and stuff. But number one, students who are planning to apply to round 2 are hard at work. Right. Students who are planning to apply to round 1 next year are already hard at work. Right. If you're still thinking about it, then you're late. You're already late.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
That's right.
So anyway, thank you, Paulo, César.
You're welcome.
For
nice chatting with you all.
Yeah, this little chat. Just to kind of let you guys know what's going to happen next year. That's it for today's MBA Wire Insights. I hope y'all have a great time. This is Mateo Chang signing off. Peace.